Good morning, world, and welcome to the special Saturday cruise of the WSR Wolfie. This is Dave Corso for the Depths of the Wolves Den, and somewhere in the background I have the lovely Deetra with her guest Drake. And I want you to welcome them right now. They got it. Deetra and Drake, come on and say hi.
Hey, how are you? And good morning. We are so excited to be here and be a part of this great network of such wonderful, tremendous, outstanding hosts. This is an opportunity that doesn't come along every day. So we're really, really excited, and we feel really honored to be here. We have Drake with us. As you know, a lot of people know, Drake has kind of sort of unwittingly become somewhat of a celebrity, and he's been with Freedom Reigns, which is the program that I am affiliated with. And Drake, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself a little bit. Tell our listeners a little about you, and what all we've been up to.
Okay. First of all, I want to make everybody aware of the fact that a lot of people say a lot of things. They come out as generalities. And I am in a position where I'm dealing with principled people, and this is on a global basis, who are attempting to accomplish the freedom that everybody has been looking for. Due to the fact that the items that they deal with, the situations they are in, some of the situation I'm in, makes things a little bit sensitive in certain areas, so I cannot divulge certain specific details. However, I do have the capability of getting information that others can't. The gist of this comes from a combination of military background, high-level security clearances, and a few other things. During my period at that time, I proved my worthiness. Over a period of years after that, I proved that I could keep my mouth shut about confidential and or security issues, as well as secret items that nobody wanted out.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see a plan, and that plan is one of setting our country free. The basis and realization of that is that primarily everybody looks to the United States as being the bastion of freedom, of the light to the world, and that sort of thing. So my involvement, because of my oath of service being what it is, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, basically put me in a position of having that haunt me until I actually started really doing something, and then it started screaming at me. So I've got these little funny games going on.
Right.
The other part of it is that Deatra and I have worked as a team, basically, in terms of bringing information to the forefront, what's going on, the fact that there is a plan, and other things dealing with a combination of military planning, civilian authorizations, and funding, etc. So that's basically as good an introduction as you could probably get.
Yeah. You did pretty good there. Now, you know, we've been bringing things forward via our other show for a little while now, a few weeks, and something that you had been asked that I kind of orchestrated was addressing our military as to what they need to be doing, what they need to be watching out for, you know, things that of course aren't going to get them into any kind of trouble, but how to stand up and how to recognize good orders, bad orders, and so on and so forth. And I bring this up because I would like your take on this, Drake. Yesterday, there was a YouTube video that began going viral, which is completely and totally opposite of what we really need to be doing. This video is telling people that we're supposed to be taking up arms should they see military activity in their neighborhoods. Yet, with my own affiliations, with military throughout the country, and including within my own family, that is like the last thing that we should be doing. And one of my thoughts is, oh my gosh, I mean, our so-called government, the corporation, has done everything it can to make the people absolutely terrified of our military. Yet, our military is on the side of the people. And, I don't know what what you have to say on this video that's come out. I mean, I'm just like, this can't happen, guys. So I'm going to let you go ahead and, if you would, kind of help us to understand. Maybe we could address a little bit more of the military and their role in this. Because I mean,
it's pretty easy.
Have the people taking up arms against our military when they're here to help us.
It's pretty easy, really. That YouTube video is horse hockey. And I'll tell you why. The military has had this plan to free the United States. It's been ongoing, being added to, adjusted as needed, in order to not facilitate a military takeover, martial law, and all the garbage that is contained within that. What the military has been hunting for and searching out are people that are patriotic enough to take the legal actions that a certain portion of our group has taken, that actually offers notification of the declaration of the independent sovereignty of each individual state.
Mm-hmm.
What that does is that gives civilian authority to the military to assist us, the people, in retaking our government. Now, part of the paperwork that was submitted contains a cute little thing called the Declaration of Independence. And it states within there that when we find a government being repressive, we are empowered and it is part of our duty to replace that government.
Mm-hmm.
The manner in which that is done is a combination of things. You can have an outright shooting revolt, or you can do so peacefully in a legalistic and lawful manner. The military, knowing tactics the way they did, decided that it would be best to do so in as peaceful a manner as possible. The plan that they have in place stipulates that that is going to be one of the prime directives of accomplishing that goal. In other words, returning us to what the forefathers had in terms of the founding documents.
Mm-hmm.
We are now in a position to be able to start actuating this. To understand addressment to the troops, freedomrange.us, our website, has a program on there where I address the troops. The ideology of this was to let the troops know that they should look at their handbook and the United States Code of Military Justice, wherein it states that they are not to engage civilians, period. This includes coming to your house, extracting you, your weapons, and your food, or any of that sort of BS. Now,
right.
The reason I'm stating that as BS is because my addressment of the troops, stipulating lawful and unlawful orders and the way to recognize them, went viral almost immediately.
It did.
In the following hours, and I'm not talking days, hours, it had spread as far as Japan. So I know that everybody is becoming aware. Now, this includes all branches of the service. And the basis of this is twofold. Number one, the actions taken by individuals in individual states in a majority of the number of states has given civilian authority to the military to take the action. Then we got to wait, and everybody was going crazy waiting. The reason they're waiting is that if you go to Divine Cosmos, you'll see a report that all 12 of the central banks have been attached.
Right.
That attachment means that they have to repay what are called collateral and global accounts that were designated to go to the people. This will bankrupt the central banking system and put it out of business. Mm-hmm. It will be resurrected on what's called an RV, or refunding of the varying accounts that are dealt with. Parts of all this, as I said, are on David's site. The other part of this is the next step. The next step is going to be critical because it prefers a barrage and an extraordinary number of different charges against an extraordinary list of individuals. The names of which filed will probably shock a lot of people because there are a lot of your celebrity politicians involved in this. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to elucidate any further except that is the second shot that's going to be heard around the world. That will enable the military at that time to contact each and every last federal marshal available, to contact local law enforcement and have civilian authority take these people into custody. The FEMA camps that they built for us are now going to be filled with them.
Right, okay. There's just been a lot that's been going on. I mean, I've watched the various events, these sudden resignations, and things like that. And since this project has been completed, I've watched it, and I'm sitting here going, wow, I mean, this just really seems to it seems to be very true, very real. It seems to be that for once, legitimate action is really being taken. And I know I am in total amazement of it. One of my concerns, though, too, is it's been mentioned a lot, the foreign troops that are supposedly they're in Mexico, on the Mexican borders. It's being said that they're coming, that they're lining up to invade the U.S. in a negative way. Such as like the Chinese troops and so on and so forth. And I know that that's been out there a lot. And do you have anything on that you could offer us?
Yes, I do. Basically, some of those troops were called in to do what you're saying. However, the good guys in our military have contacted them and expressed that we have a counter-alignment. You'll find that there's a load of military equipment that has been and is being moved to the southwest. Mm-hmm. Now, the agreement is that we won't go to war with each other, and it's conditional upon going through house to house in Mexico and ferreting out your drug farms and dealers, closing their ports of entry and things of that nature. Now, this is opposite of what a lot of the naysayers, it's NWO time, we're going to be invaded, etc. This is, you have to remember that in military tactics, you can look like you're doing one thing when you're actually accomplishing another. So the bad guys thought it would be neat to start a, quote, war, conventional type war, right off the bat in an area that's under contention anyway. There's already gunfire and this sort of thing down there, so it's not out of line. And in that way, start what would be called a shooting revolution here in the States. Any foreign troop, anybody that is not as such a white man is in trouble if they're wearing a uniform. Now, the problem with that is that I've been in touch with all of the militias and underground groups that I can get a hold of as far as I can reach. The general idea is that, yes, be ready to take action. You may be called on by our very own military to assist in securing a power plant, making sure the waterworks don't get blowed up, this sort of thing. So there's there's combinations in this that even the bad guys weren't prepared for. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like if you read the Bible, the devil goes around killing people, and the believers are cheating by raising them from the dead, that sort of thing. Well, the military uses tactics similar to that in terms of not cheating fair. The ideology is that there's a standoff, meaning that they would not make it. There's not enough of them to take the forces that are already deployed, and those are being reinforced. So you also have a contingent in Canada. Same deal. In combination with this, the addressment of the troops that I made is being presented to command levels. So the lawful and unlawful order in terms of engagement of civilians by a military authority is negated in terms of the fact that they're not allowed to. Field manual, military code of justice, then to go along with it, the majority, and I'm talking, 80% or better, agree with us. They are tired, the military in general, are tired of being the bad guys. They want to be the good guys and to be seen as such, not just here, but worldwide. The only manner in which to do that is to make sure that they are a principle in reestablishing the freedoms we used to have and have had or started with in such a way that it reverts, in terms of authority, to we the people, as it should have been. So there's a lot going on, and that's convoluted, and it's got a lot of information in it, but that's basically where things are at this point.
Right. Okay. Now, another thing I've noticed here, and I haven't really looked into the story too much, but I also understand you received a phone call about this earlier today, and that would be what's been in the mainstream the last couple of days. At least it kind of flashed across my screen as I was shutting the TV off from somebody else leaving it on. But there's issues going on with the Secret Service. Stating how they're being arrested or detained or brought up on charges for things. But then I also saw something regarding the CIA having to do things such as the original report I saw said that the CIA had to escort or shorten Mr. Obama's agenda that he was, or wherever he was at. They had to escort him home because his guys had been arrested or something. Now, do you know or have any information on that? Like I said, I haven't followed it completely because I just happened to get up and turn the TV off because somebody had left it on, so I didn't catch the whole thing. Okay.
I got a report from one friend that we both know, and then did a little check, having the time to do so, and come to find out that's basically what happened. Now, there's parts of this that people don't understand. One of those is that any dictator has to have close to him what would be considered a large group, small army, however you want to look at that, of people loyal to the individual only. Mm-hmm. The effort by Obama is to cause that to happen. Therefore, denigration or reduction of the honor and office of the Secret Service and Secret Service agents has been perpetrated directly by the President in order to accomplish that particular goal. the problem is that there was also some explosions.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Well, the Secret Service was aware of it and ready to stop them.
Okay.
They allowed it to continue simply because they were being stated as being running around whorehouses, etc., doing drugs and all this, which is something I know for a fact is not true.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take somebody's reputation and trash it in that fashion, and you foster artificial and fraudulent charges and make them look bad, then you can replace the contingent or detail that is directly responsible for the safety and security of the president, and he can get his little group of his own choosing around him.
So basically, it's just another attempt to try and to cover his own butt.
No, well, it's a combination of that and false flag. The false flag ideology is very common. To give you an example, the majority of these explosions that we're seeing in Iraq and Afghanistan right next to mosques were more than obvious to me, because I was in explosives, being of the nature of either CIA, Mossad, or some other covert operation. We've been doing this for years and years to displace people that wouldn't go along with whatever little plan the bankers had in mind. Now, you have to remember, each and every last person, to include the president, are primarily puppets of the financial powers that I believe was, I forget who it was that mentioned it, but that there was a power out there everybody was afraid of, and consequently they didn't mention it, and even though they knew it was there, and some had been directly threatened by it. Okay, these people are the cabal. These are the agents of the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and the central banking system who, by whatever means necessary, and it does not matter what the expense is, to obtain the goal of absolute control. The absolute control, because the central banking system is now in trouble, has been almost deleted, actually. It's at very low levels. The other part of it is that the Alliance of Nations, these are the unaligned nations, have created their own central banking system. This means that we can no longer go to a small foreign country, take what we want that we need for value, and leave. It means that the cabal, the financial system, and this includes not only the United States but Europe as well, cannot function outside of their own limitations. Whatever money that is already in the system, that's the limit. They cannot acquire further funds. Now, that goes to a combination of world banking and a bunch of other things that also is rather intricate in terms of trying to explain it. Mm-hmm. That's basically the situation.
Okay. Drake, if you don't mind, actually, my my co-host here would love to ask you a question or two.
That's fine.
Well, Spirit?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, Drake, I was just wanting to ask you a simple question. How involved are American Indians in what's going on? Because I'm in touch with 3 or 4 chiefs that I speak with on a regular basis, and they're talking about a lot of the same things that you're talking about and have been since October of last year. So is there any details you can give on that?
We're looking for, we're waiting on confirmation paperwork and documentation from the great, let's see, what did they say? It was the Great Fire Council.
Okay.
And the chief of the council was the person I was on the phone with. They would like to align with us in our efforts for freedom. They would also like to align with us personally to include in the manner that they have documentation that precedes what we have, so that the whole of the Americas can be reset to the original documentation. And personally, I fully agree with it because it states the same things that it states things better than our Constitution and founding documents can. It's a little more complete. And one thing people don't understand is that the idea of a structure from chief down is a matter of importance that would be close to a religious belief in terms of honoring what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to be and things of this nature, which goes back to the earlier days when I grew up, and any adult was allowed to express to any child, hey, cool it, you're not doing the right thing and you know it, behave. And the child would comply for two reasons. They knew what mom and dad would do to them if mom and dad found out, but the other part was that they had the basis of the set of values required to be sociable, to be productive, a proactive person, and actually, think about what you're doing before you do it, type of thing. So, yes, we're in touch with the tribal councils of the Americas, and we're looking, as I said, for the documentation as soon as it's available. That's primarily all we're waiting for. Now, they would like to use some of the processes that we have used in conjunction with that paperwork. I don't feel that there's any way that anyone can deny the authenticity and reality of what it offers. So it's in progress.
Drake, I actually have a meeting tonight with the tribal council.
So you're talking about original treaties that were signed as far back as 1631 when you say paperwork that they are in possession of, treaties that were abrogated ever since Europeans came here. If I'm reading what you're saying correctly, is that correct? Or
yeah.
Yes, that's exactly correct. And the further part of that is that there were certain documentation that was issued from the America's Tribal Council to the heads of state in Europe who did not object to the paperwork, which is and was, at that point, an act of acceptance of everything in the paperwork. So therefore, it supersedes Magna Carta and all those. And like I said, I'm just real antsy right now waiting for that to show up. That will basically assist not only our process, but it goes even to greater depth in terms of the reality of being able to take care of the problems that we've got.
Okay. Did that answer your question, or did you have some more?
Well, I just wanted to say the chief that I know, when he was doing an eagle dance at a powwow, an admiral was there, and the admiral said to the entire audience when he was addressing them that the two-row wampum is the supreme law of the land. And I was just wondering if you knew anything about the two-row wampum, Drake.
Only minorly. I've not gotten fully invested. As you can tell, I have a tendency to be extraordinarily busy dealing with a variety of things, and as I am able to have the time, I will get into that further, but at this point, superficially only.
Okay. All right. Thank you for letting me ask you that question.
All right. It seems that we should be about a break time. Am I correct there, Spirit Wolf?
This is Dave, and my dear, I have a song already lined up.
Yay.
Welcome back, my brothers and sisters, to the first United We Win Marathon Saturday. And my guest for this hour is Deetra and her friend Drake, me and my co-host Tom. And Deetra, go to it, darling.
Oh, hey. I'm getting some comments over here in chat. We're waiting for questions to come in.
Let me answer that question. I'd be honored. And like I said, we'll get together tomorrow and work out a time schedule for you and Drake as many times a week as you need, because I am your executive producer.
Oh, awesome. I am so excited. And that's what we're here for, to work together to bring forth the truth and solutions to the people in a lawful, legal, and peaceful manner. Together, united we win, and divided we fall. That's how I see it. So we need to stand together and work as a team. That's the way I see it. Drake, like I brought up in the beginning, our military. I am just so concerned with this viral that's going around, this viral video. I'm really, really super concerned about it. And so, even though we've covered it on a Freedom Reigns show previously, maybe I could ask you to kind of give that little talk again to our people that are listening here, because, we're new to this network and they've not had the opportunity of hearing your address to the military.
Okay. Very simply, most people know the differential between right and wrong. When anybody is put in a position of authority, and by authority I mean a position that is outside of normal social realms. In other words, you ain't at a picnic, you're on bivouac. You ain't just casually walking down the road, you're marching, and this sort of thing. A lot of people have a concern that if they disobey an order, they're going to be put out of the military. There's a problem with that. The military, although officially you hear about they want to downsize, get rid of people and all that, is operating shorthandedly. The situation is simply this. When you reach 20 to 30%, the military machine does not operate correctly. The issues are very simple. At the point that it stands right now, some 70%, give or take, and that's a round number, are on the side of doing their job correctly. This means that they have been told to look into and read their field manual in terms of what they are to do and not to do, what the allowances are in that, what their standing and condition will be according to directive and or order, and the difference between lawful and unlawful is very simple. A lawful order means that you will carry out an objective, whatever that may be. You might be clearing a creek. You might be painting somebody's house. You might be seeing whether or not you can go from the barracks to ready to on the truck to the base of a hill and make the top of it, and how long it takes you to get there. Those are lawful types of things. The defense of our country is a lawful objective. Now, here comes the difference. There are in place people who believe that the bad guys are right, that they're correct in what they're doing, and they believe that they should support that no matter what. This, if you look for it on the internet, comes under the support of the continuity of government. And it states quite clearly, by any means necessary. Well, continuity of government means that governance is not to be, as such, interrupted. It does not mean that you will preserve an individual in an office It means that the office itself should function and function clearly and concisely and in agreement with the Constitution. Now, the fun starts in that the military is subject to rules, regulations, and majority agreements made by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has caused certain adjustments to the Uniform Military Code. Those adjustments were to make sure that the premise of the rules of engagement are followed. Under the rules of engagement, you will find several different ways that the military can engage civilians. At most, and this is at most, in a riot control or assistance to local law enforcement. When local law enforcement is faced with 10,000 people, they might need some help when there's only 10 of them. Mm-hmm. Consequently, this sort of thing, in terms of maintaining order only on an emergency basis, is okay. It's available. Now, you will not be firing weapons at the crowds. You will not be breaking heads, so to speak, etc. What you will be doing is operating as a show of force. You may be assisting the local law enforcement in taking people into custody. This is legal. Posse Comitatus states that the military will not act independently of civilian authority. Also contained in the Uniform Code of Military Justice in your field manual. So therefore, you know now what you can and cannot do, basically. My suggestion, as it was to the troops then, and as it is now, if you know someone who's in the military, be that reserve or whatever, make sure that they start looking in that field manual for those particular items. Then they should go ask their platoon leader, their platoon sergeant, the company commander, and anybody else that they can get to ask the question. Do you follow this? Is this how it's supposed to be done? Is this right? Anybody who says yes, you got it made. Those who say absolutely not, you'll follow orders no matter what, then you know who the bad guy is. Very simple. Now, part of the purging or cleaning or whatever you want to call it in terms of public officials being arrested includes people in the military who decided that they wanted to be a part of the bad guys and have acted accordingly. They will also be taken into custody. This is not just a sweep of the civilian only, but also a cleansing of the military as well. So, and people, that's something I had not added to the first program, simply because the message itself had not gone far enough. It has now gone far enough that I can make that announcement. So,
okay.
I have a quick question coming out of the chat room, Deatra.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best email address to find out if our state is involved, and if so, who the contact is?
They could contact us through the freedomreigns.us website, and we will link you up with other persons within your prospective state.
And that's just www.freedomreigns.us?
Yes. Yes.
Are there further questions?
Yeah. Do we have more questions yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Drake.
We had a small statement to this. Something outside of the context of the, quote, direct freedom, or actually within it, but its own program or whatever you might want to call it, is called the County Project. And I mention this because everybody that has military experience and knows how to formulate the structure so that you've got quick communications, quick deployment, quick notification, should get together in their local community with people that believe that they may need to be notified and put together a phone tree, things of this nature. Not only gossip on these things and exchange information and, how's the dog doing? I heard he got hit by a car or whatever. But also, in the event that there are problems, in the event that they need to be notified that, say, a renegade group of bad guys is headed their way, they can at least be prepared. And if the military might need assistance, they can contact individuals in areas where you might just go and camp out with your guns around a cell phone tower. Make sure some idiot don't blow it up. Mm-hmm. All of these things are critical. This helps take care of the idea of chaos, give somebody something to do that actually is proactive, and also allows people to organize in terms of the belief in freedom. Now, this bleeds over or carries into the aftermath. When everything's cleaned out, there's going to be a big vacuum. They are going to need people to step up and take positions. These will be spotty, critical positions. Also, as you're doing this community group, take a look at your county, take a look at your local town, take a look around and see who is doing what and the manner in which they're doing it. Take note of it. Be aware of it. This way, when you have the availability to reorganize, reset, and restructure, you can get the right people in place. That will help tremendously. And that's basically that announcement.
Okay. Well, we need to also make sure that people understand that, even though the vast majority of our military are on the side of the people, there will be those that are going to go rogue, and they're, as you said, they're going to follow the orders that they're given. But the main people, the real people, they're not, the real military, they're not going to turn against the people. That's not going to happen. I mean, I know that for a fact. I've got absolutely zero doubt to that. So I just felt it was really, really important for you to address that again. Now, Drake, there's been controversy, basically. We've been there's been a lot of false comments of what the process has been, and stating that the project was joining with The Hague, and The Hague is a place. It's a city. It's, and people don't get that. And maybe you could kind of clear that up a little bit, because, there's just so much misconception, people that are just, I guess, maybe just not really informed, or, I'll let you go ahead and run with that.
Okay. Well, very simply, what we did was we used a lot of our founding documents, 1787 Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Articles of Confederation, Declaration of Independence, and we had meetings in individual states. These individual meetings in individual states basically state a complete and full divorcement and removal of ourselves in terms of our state from the corporate government. Mm-hmm. It is a notification process only. In short, we're using the court, a portion of the court of The Hague as a newspaper in terms of notification of I'm not responsible for my debts after such and such a day. That sort of thing. Now, the other part of this is that we are not, first of all, a group. We're a grouping of a whole bunch of individuals. We do not have everybody's name, even. We don't have, as such, per se, or specific specifically any kind of organization in that respect. Secondly, we do not have a leader. The leader are the people. This is a big difference between any and most of the other organizations I've ever come across. Anybody who says that we are affiliated or has a website that says it's us and it's not freedomreigns.us, then it is not us. Now, whether it's bogus and they're trying to sell widgets or they want the attention or whatever the deal is, I don't know. I'm not interested. They actually have a couple of websites out there that say it's me.
Mm-hmm. Basically, Drake, I think basically the best way I have heard it stated is notification was given basically saying, we're not playing no more. Y'all can take this job and shove it. We're done.
Exactly.
And that is the best way that I have heard it said. But we have another question that came to me via Skype. Is this in any way part of Bob Schultz's group, and is he involved?
Okay, unequivocally and absolutely no. We are not affiliated with, attached to, nor do we have any joining of any kind with anything other than the action itself. Anything outside of the action itself has nothing to do with us. This includes any group that says that they are affiliated directly. Mm-hmm. Now, we are looking at affiliating with the Indian nations for a variety of reasons. Number one, what we did to them as one race, white man to red man, if you want to look at it that way, European to Indian or whatever. I personally, when I started actually getting into the records and finding out what went on, it turned my stomach. I did not know that anybody that I could think of would act like that. Mm-hmm. Now, since getting involved in this quite a few years ago, I've identified some people that would act that way and enjoy it. These are the people that we're coming after. Now, there's no direct affiliation with anybody. I do converse on varying levels with different people, and I do have contacts through the website that I answer questions to, and that's basically it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another big, huge, I know you kind of addressed this, but this is another huge, huge thing. There's a lot of questions in the background, not per se right this moment, but from doing past broadcasts and that this sounds very similar to that of the Tim Turner Rap Rusa agenda. And I'm going to let you address that.
Well, it's very simple. The difference is that we stand alone individually, first of all. Secondly, we do not have a leader. And thirdly, we disassociate from any and all groups, to include agencies, etc. Now, one of the problems I've noticed with these groups that are not kosher is that they have the intention to, first of all, replace the standing government as it is, for one, and that goes against the freedom of the people. And number two, to call in the UN and have them take over. Now, anybody that has a computer and has pretty much any common sense can do a simple check. And this is what it is. Go to the UN website. Read their charter. Read about Agenda 21 and other things that will thoroughly discourage you from wanting to have anything to do with them. Part of the plan is to remove the people from that building and shove it off in the water and see if it will float. Mm-hmm. That's basically what people think of the United Nations. Now, the United Nations, as it should have been originally, is going to be reinstituted or reinitialized in terms of an agreement that is being worked on as we speak, where different countries augment each other. A rich country can afford to give a little bit of wealth, so can some others, and some poor country that has some serious problem, and I'll give you an example of the earthquake in Haiti as an example.
Okay.
If the world had taken 1% of each of the wealth that they didn't need and applied it to Haiti, Haiti would be a thriving place, no problems, no dirt, no problem. You wouldn't be able to tell anything happened. However, due to the greed of the bankers, and I'm not going to be nice about this, specifically the relief efforts and those people involved in those relief efforts, they have personally gotten wealthy through donations that never reached the people. Now, when you get to outright theft, that's about as blatant as it gets. When you got starving people that are hurt, and you don't bother buying bandages or feeding them, when you do have the money, you want to put it in your pocket. To me, that's a bit much.
Right.
And like I said, those are the people that the efforts are going after.
Right. There's another question, Drake, that came from the chat room. It says, who decides who the bad guys are, and what is the criteria that deems one as quote-unquote bad? And then there's another one that says, and what will happen to all the odious debt out there?
Okay, the combination is this. A bad guy is a part of or facilitating what is called the financial realm of control that ultimately leads to the New World Order. Everybody loves that little phrase. The New World Order contains within it a population reduction, among other things, by any means possible. Whether they decide to set troops up and shoot at everybody or what is, it varies. They thought of using nukes, and they sort of, let's use conventional. Now, I'm talking about against unarmed civilians, something similar to what is transpiring in Syria. They are attacking a city, and not everybody in there is a rebel. But they're just blowing it to kingdom come just because they have the power to do so. Okay, think about that on a global scale, and you have Agenda 21 population reduction to include diseases and anything else. So that's basically where this is at in terms of determining a bad guy. Someone who has gone illegally and acquired monies from accounts that are not theirs, that belong to the people who have helped in that, committed murders to facilitate it, etc. The crimes are extreme in terms of the nature and quality of them. Now, as far as debt goes, the debt, and Iceland, you can look in the news, Iceland's a good example of this. They told the central banking system to stick it, that the debt was fraudulent, and it worked.
Right.
Second thing they did recently was they removed all of the mortgages, because those are also fraudulent, and that also applies here, everywhere. This is the change, as I said, is going to be extreme and extraordinary. You're not going to believe what's coming, and it's nice. Believe me, all of it is really cool.
Right. Right.
Okay?
This is really an exciting time. It really is, and just there's so much happening. But I do see that we are at the top of the hour, and Dave, I do believe we need to go to break. Is that correct?
We're going to take a little break here on the United We Win weekend. We're going to play something called A Horse with No Name, because I think that's very appropriate. Yes. Welcome back, my brothers and sisters, to the very first United We Win weekend. And,
yes. Dave, did you drop off?
No, I'm trying to think, and nothing's happening. Anyways, go ahead and you two take up, because we do have a question come in from the chat room. And that is, who decides who the bad guys are? And what's the criteria that deems one as bad?
Drake, you want to run with that?
Sure. It's very simple. Anybody who has facilitated anything that does not go along with our original founding documents, and or is what would be called selective enforcement or targeting of individuals. This would give everybody a good idea locally. Then on a higher level, anybody who has helped the bad guys as they are, who have created the housing bubble and caused the unemployment and been involved in that, are considered bad guys. Those are the reason the reason you don't have jobs, and the reason your children are hungry, and the reason things ain't going right, is that several some standing presently officials and former officials have plopped their political butts in the way and are preventing the payout of what's called collateral accounts. These collateral accounts deal with all of the debt and each and every part of the financial problems that we presently have. All of those would be addressed. But basically the idea is that anyone who's helped to cause this problems is guilty and will be adjudicated. They're not going to just be strung up in trees, and I don't recommend anybody doing that. So that we can actually be a nation of law and order rather than mob rule.
Right, exactly. Drake, we've got another question here from the Skype that says, how will the regular patriot citizens know that the military is not out to get them and take them to FEMA camps?
Well, very simply, they're not going to come out here after you, number one. Number two, you're not going to have to be dealing with martial law, roadblocks, and all that happy stuff. That is not happening. The military has refused to do that. And I'm going to tell you that they have been requested to do so several times in our recent past. They've told the people that wanted to do that to take a flying leap at the rolling donut. They were not going to put themselves in the same position that they've been in of being the bad guys all the time and against the people. You got to remember the people in the military are people too. Consequently, eventually, if they were to come out and go after house to house, popping people out of their houses by force or dead bodies or whatever, you're going to get to somebody who's a relative. Well, no, you ain't taking Grandma. You put her back in the house, you leave her alone. Well, what about all these other people? Turn them loose too. And there you have it. That's basically what could happen. Now, that's a scenario from a sci-fi flick, but I have been assured by some 70% active duty at different levels of troops, as well as retired high-level military, that there is no way that they're going to participate in a overall takeover. The very idea is distasteful to begin with, and they don't like the people that want to do that very much anyway. So there's a lot of, I don't know what you'd call it, heavy resistance in that regard. And when you get to like 70 or 80% of the troops, anywhere from 60 to 80%, 90%, who say that if they declared martial law, they'd all go AWOL. Now you're going to enforce martial law if everybody went home.
Right.
It's pretty simple.
Okay. Well, if we truly are to restore the republic, will the military protect us as we restore? And that's another question from the chat room.
Well, there may not be much.
Or not chat room, but from Skype.
Okay, there may not be much in terms of needed protection, and the reason being is that a majority of the bad guys will have been collected. There'll be a few out and about, but not many, and they will eventually be caught as well, because mostly we know who they are. And there are ways to cause them to expose themselves. So in terms of protection, what needs to happen is not to worry so much about, oh my goodness, now what do I do, but take a simple action. And it goes into several, but primarily get educated. Okay, the education starts with knowing your neighbor, knowing your locale, knowing what's going on around you, either officially or just in the neighborhood and this sort of thing. Be familiar with people so that when the time comes and you need a group, you got one. This is where a phone tree, this is where having a community garden, or finding out how to garden from somebody who does know when you don't, or vice versa, teaching somebody to garden. You get to know these people. Very simple. And the word of you and your willingness to be the quality person everybody like to know spreads. Just that simple. And so does the efforts involved. Now, it can be something as simple as somebody needs something to eat, but they won't accept charity. Okay, well, you can run the sweeper for me, and here's some canned goods and et cetera. Okay, then you don't got the charity problem, and the needs have been taken care of, and you didn't have to run the sweeper. You know, it's a win-win situation. So these things can all be worked out, and it don't matter what it is. You can always figure some kind of a way to allow a person to retain their dignity and their independence, and to alleviate their own anxiety of, oh my goodness, you know, there's no reason to be overly excited in terms of something bad going to happen, because it's all good. It's going to be like a humongous 4th of July, I think.
Okay. Here's another one. This is kind of really ridiculous, and most of it, unfortunately, comes from the Tim Turner group, apparently. But they are accusing you, Drake, of hiding behind a nickname.
That's not the first time I've heard that one. No, actually, that's my real name, and I don't care if you don't like the idea or thinks otherwise. That's not my problem. People can imagine whatever they want for whatever reason they want, and what we're dealing with primarily is imaginary ego, imaginary power that doesn't exist. What has to be understood is that Tim Turner, and I'm not going to say nasty, I'm not going to say any of these things about the group. The idea of the group was sovereignty. They went about it in a specific manner. The problems come in when you have someone who dictates, absolutely this will be, or absolutely that won't be. You have another problem when you include something along the line of a communist organization such as the United Nations. The combination of that is not freedom. Freedom is the right to choose, the basic God-given right to choose. It's stated in every religious manual book or whatever that I've ever seen, believe or not as you so choose. Some of them decide that they're going to penalize you. Well, whoop-de-doo. If you really believe it, there's no problem. So, you know, that's where it's at. The basis of some of the things Turner's done are great. They're actually pretty decent. However, a lot of this comes in where people assume an office.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. The difference between what we do and have done and what we are accomplishing is this. All of the power goes back to the people. That's the difference.
Right. Drake, as I'm sure you're aware, censorship has started. You know, Disclose.tv has been seized. I'm looking at the website right now. When I went to it, there's a big page on the front that says this domain name has been seized by the United States Department of Internet Security Terrorism Task Force and the European Allied Command Operations in accordance with the International Website Seizure Act, and is under investigation along with its owners, administration, and membership. It says full civil and criminal legal action will be taken against those who knowingly or unknowingly have contributed to acts of sedition, terror, mongering, and possible treason, including links to other sites now deemed a threat to national and international security. A warrant has been obtained with the assistance of the U.S. Terror Attorney's Office for the District of Maryland. authorizing seizure of property and forfeiture thereof, according to 23 U.S.C. number 981 and number 714C.
Okay.
So what is your comments on that, if you have any?
Well, first of all, what's transpiring is a test to see whether or not they can get away with it. The first action always is a test. I'll recommend that they be challenged simply for not upholding their oaths of office in terms of freedom of information. That this goes directly against the Freedom of Information Act. That sedition, means that they were trying to take over and destroy government and government property. Mm-hmm. That's part of the definition. The other part of it is, what's treason? Treason is anything that goes against the basis of the Constitution, which we included in our paperwork. So anything that is put out publicly, not only is public knowledge, and has been out for a while, some of the things I have stated are exact. Whether they like it or not is not my problem. Now, I don't lay down challenges, period. I think that's stupid. I don't want to see if somebody can outgun me in the woods or whatever. That's not intelligent. The intelligent approach would be then to have each and every last person involved, along with the service provider, to authenticate the charges. Now, the problem with that is that most of the acts, laws, rules, regulations are so general that if they don't like where my weeds come up in my yard, they can take issue with my existence. Now, if that does not sound right, that's because it's not. The right of free speech has been continually challenged. Now, the right of free speech only has a few limitations. Some of the limitations are character assassination, where you don't have any basis for anything, but you say a bunch of nasty things about somebody. You can find yourself in court over that. In terms of secrecy, anything above, and this includes classification, this is where it starts, anything above confidential information is not to be outed, period. And these are parts of the law as they exist presently. All of these laws, to include control of the Internet and things of that nature, will not only be rescinded, but these people taking these actions will be held criminally liable for their actions.
Okay. There's a question in the chat room for you, Drake. If you would comment on 9/11, and will the truth ever be mainstream news?
Yes, that's part of the information that's been kept secret, that there's no reason to keep it secret. The people involved in that are going to be held accountable again. I mean, there's the amounts, the reach of the bad guys is pretty extensive. The whole of the organization has not been taken down yet. It seemed to be, but the actions have not been culminated fully yet to do so. Therefore, you're still living under some forms of the old controls, and a person needs to be aware of those to the extent that they do not directly challenge them. Because the simple fact of it is, as you can see with this particular action by Internet terrorism, that you can have real serious problems while they figure out what to do. It may be that these people will be exonerated. It could very well be that. So what you have to understand is that on exoneration, how much time went by? And is that particular website or is that particular TV station in this case still a viable entity? Well, when they come back, several of them have come back when they've been taken offline for other reasons before the internet terrorism legalities started. They have come back and have gotten even stronger. So the people that are doing this have to understand that if you really say something, it needs to hold water when you get done with it. If not, these people are allowed to continue what they were doing, and they can also advertise for the agencies and individuals involved as to what they did illegally and what they did immorally in terms of God says we got the choice of freedom to speak. If you want to talk to somebody, you do. If you don't, you don't. Believe it or not, as you so choose. It's very simple. But these, the basis of the new structure is going to be in a combination of common law. Common law is simple, but also complex in some of its ways. Now, under present law, there are ways to combat what they're doing. So, in other words, when litigation is taken, it has to be well defined. In other words, when a person goes to get a warrant to do something, that warrant has to have an affidavit of fact. It can't be innuendo and generality. It has to be fact that X was what was happening, and that was their reason to obtain the warrant to, say, close it down, take someone into custody, etc. If that is not done, and a copy along with the warrant submitted to the individuals involved, then the warrant doesn't hold water, and the actions are illegal.
Okay.
At that point, an individual has the right to defend themselves whatever means necessary to whatever extent is required. So,
right. Okay. Well, that sounds pretty good there. Now, in regards to these mass arrests that are going to take place and have been taking place, are we going to actually see the mass arrests gradually, or are we going to see more at some periods and less at others, maybe from week to week? Or that's another question from the Skype room.
It's going to be over a period of time. The first thing that has to happen is you have to take the support out. Those are the people behind the scenes that you don't see. These are certain lobbyists with lots of money. These are certain individuals in financial realms who, through either finance or arrangement, help these people do what they do. Okay, when that support is gone, then the more direct action can be taken more easily, because you know then who you're dealing with a lot better. So, yes and yes. You're going to see over a period of time an extraordinary amount of custody, just as was being seen in Europe. Thousands have quit, hundreds are under arrest, and it's continuing. Well, it's coming here, and these people are grasping at straws trying to make it quit. That's what that closure of that website was about.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we're at the bottom of the hour.
Not quite.
Oh, go ahead.
We have 6 minutes yet. We have a slew of questions that have come in from the chat room.
I wanted to ask Drake one question, if I may, for a moment before we get to those questions.
Of course, Thomas.
One that I've looked into is edible plants that grow right in my yard. Everybody looks at clover as a weed and they weed eat them, but clover is very edible, as are dandelions, things of that nature. So what is your recommendation on everyone, since they have access to the internet, looking up edible plants in the state they live in?
It's a good idea. If you've got somewhere to grow food, do so. And it can be dandelion. I got a nice crop of dandelions. you have to. Some of these things are not. People aren't used to eating. Okay, certain portions are stronger in flavor and taste than others. So you're going to have to kind of mediate and figure out what you like best. In some cases, the flowers are great, and the rest of the plant is ooey. So it varies. There's a lot of natural growth that can be had. That is the manner in which the Indians survived on their long trips. They didn't pack a whole bunch of beef and all that sort of thing. They got their food as they went. They cooked a rabbit. They ate leaves off of plants and some trees to go along with that, berries and all that. So, yeah, learn how to do that. If you can grow your own apple trees and things of that nature are excellent. So.
Yeah, I've got a veritable garden in my backyard of clover, and it tastes kind of like a long stem onion with a touch of sweetness to it. So clover is very edible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I got lots of that out here. And, I mean, who would have thunk that you go out and pull a weed from your driveway and it would heal a wound immediately? It's like, right. Oh, my gosh, I learned that just recently from somebody else that you have on here periodically, which is Dr. Will Spencer. And I tell you, when he told me that, he says, honey, he says, go out in your yard and pull a piece of plantain. And I said, huh? I mean, I thought that was just incredibly ridiculous. But, okay, I'll do it. And I did. And I am not kidding you. Within 24 hours, that wound was healed. I mean, who would have ever thunk that, you know? I mean, that just, that blew my mind.
Well, I stepped on a nail.
Hang on, Drake, what?
I stepped on a nail a couple of years ago, and the antibiotics they were giving me were keeping the infection down, but an abscess wall was forming. And so I soaked my foot in plantain, which penetrated the abscess wall and drove the infection out. So the plant cured me where the doctors could not. So, yeah, sorry about that, Drake.
Oh, no problem.
What I was going to do was let you know that red clover also is a blood cleaner. Mm-hmm. And it don't matter what kind of toxins or whatever is in there, it will remove them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I have found that too. I've been using some red clover that, again, was recommended by Dr. Will, who is a frequenter also of Freedom Reign shows. So once we're set up with dates, boy, we're going to hear a lot of great stuff from Dr. Will. And I'm excited to have a new home here with you guys.
One other quick question I wanted to ask real quick, because we had talked about it during break, about me asking this question. How much assistance are we receiving from our neighbors that are, shall we say, not human? If you can answer that.
I would suggest anybody that really wants to answer to that to go to David Wilcox's site, Divine Cosmos, and I'll tell you why. He's more of an expert in it than I am. But the fact that the efforts that we are making are not being interfered with as much as they could be shows me basically divine intervention. And I'll leave, if somebody wants to put a handle on it, I would refer to the entities themselves as angels, rather than ETs or anything of that nature. I think it's easier for people to deal with that idea. Now, what everybody is thinking about is, 2012, the world comes to an end. Well, there's a little bit of another scenario in there where the, quote, taking up, resurrection, and new divine life on the planet or wherever is supposed to take place as well. So there's a whole bunch of things, prophecies, ideas, beliefs that come into play. And from what I know of it, people will be pleasantly surprised at the outcome.
All right, folks, I hate to interrupt, but it is time for a short break for about 4.5 minutes. We'll be back in, and we have Bill Brockbrader, who's going to join us for the question for you, Drake. and a comment and some other additional information. Is that okay?
It's fine.
Good.
Here we go, the music. Welcome back, my beloved brothers and sisters all around this fragile but beautiful, up and oh so corrupt world. This is the United We Win Marathon Weekend on Wolf Spirit Radio, United We Strike Radio, and who knows how many other stations are carrying us. Anyways, the co-host for this hour is Deatra and Drake, with my co-host Tom and Bill Wood. And we have several questions that we have from the chat room. We're going to take those right after Bill says what he has to say. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And Deatra and Drake, thanks for having me on. I know we've spoken a lot privately, but it's good to have everybody on the same radio show today. For everybody that's listening, I just wanted to remind everybody that the Wolf Spirit radio listeners and people that listen to my interviews on Project Camelot, it's not a coincidence that Drake is putting out the exact same information, because it's real, it's tangible. In my Project Camelot interviews, I talked about mass arrests and how the military and other government agencies, Secret Service, federal marshals, FBI, the people that took an oath to protect this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, they're the ones that are seeing what's really going on in the world and in government. And they're the ones that want change more than anything. I guarantee there's hundreds of thousands of soldiers and sailors out there that are seeing the real effects of what the U.S. military does in the Middle East and throughout the world, and they don't want to be the people creating terror. They want to be the ones making change. And so the way to go about that is to enable them to uphold their oaths. What Drake has been talking about is that means to give them the legal authority to start arresting the real criminals in all this, to go after the people that would do anything to continue to perpetuate war and corporate spending and the military-industrial complex and the financial industry, to hold on to the power that they have. What's happening now today is the last desperate gasps of that power trying to hold on and cling to the authority that they have. And it's getting to the end of the game. I talked about it in late January and early February about Checkmate. And this game was being played out. And soon everybody would identify that it is coming to an end, and the good guys are going to win, and that this battle that we've been left to believe is being perpetuated, both sides of the battle are working together to perpetuate the war. All we're talking about doing is ending the fighting. And that's the way it's going right now. The people that want to continue to make things confrontational and the need for fear to enable them to continue this perpetual war and perpetual internment of the world is going away. And I would encourage everybody that's listening right now to use your own discernment. Don't listen to people that try to dictate what your opinion should be. And certainly walk away from anybody who is trying to enable fear. Because right now there's nothing to be afraid of. If you talk to me or Drake, we're excited. We're happy. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it is coming fast, and all we're trying to do is to get everybody to realize that that's what's really going on. We don't need to be afraid of the military. We don't need to buy into the fear porn that's coming on the internet saying, martial law is moments away, because
right.
If you see the military, they're doing their jobs. I guarantee it.
Let me interrupt you. I've actually had a question for you to address this Steve Quayle fear-mongering video that or YouTube that went out.
Yep.
Telling everybody to take arms against our military, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm already sick of it, and I only got the silly link yesterday.
Yeah, I've been under the Steve Quayle attack too, and I'd like to point out to everybody that he made a prediction. I think it was for March 21st. That there would be this, huge thing that happens, an end of days scenario, and he's had many, many predictions that continue to perpetuate this game of fear. But you go to Steve's website, and all I see is buy my stuff, invest in gold, and somebody that continues to perpetuate the New World Order kind of agenda. And we're just playing right into yet another person who uses fear to profit.
Yep.
And if he puts out a bunch of information that says, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid, everybody jumps on his website, checks it out, starts to, see all the worry and fretting that he does, and they buy into it. Once again, opinion being controlled by somebody else. Everybody that's out there that's telling you the truth is going to say, you know what? You can believe what you want to believe, but here's what I know. Use your discernment. You decide what's really going on in the world. He doesn't do that. He tells people what to think and to be afraid. And, back when we talked on the first radio show on Freedom Reigns, I said the disinfo was going to come out with a vengeance. And I think I was 100% right. I think you guys would agree.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And if I could answer one more thing, everybody that's saying why Drake doesn't come out with his real name, well, you need an example of why? Look at what happens. What's happened to me.
Let me correct this. This Drake is using his real name.
Yeah.
That's what people don't. They're assuming that it's an alias. This Drake is his real name. Period.
Let me restate that. Why Drake isn't coming out with 100% of all of his personal information that makes him vulnerable to lawsuit attacks, attacks from, disinfo agents, and people that would more than happy go after family, friends, and anybody else to shut him down. I mean, Dave can comment on this. He's been under constant attack since I've been on Wolf Spirit, and he's stood fast and held true, but it hasn't been easy. I respect Drake for maintaining some level of personal anonymity, because it really, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't change the message. And the message is what's important. Drake's last name? Not important. He's protecting his family, he's protecting his friends, and he's protecting his privacy. But he should have to do that. But everybody's seen what's happened to me and to Wolf Spirit Radio, because my anonymity was corrupted, and the Don Shipleys of the world will come out with a vengeance and tear apart every piece of personal freedom that somebody has to shut them down. And that's unfortunate, the reality of what we're going through. So, good job, Drake, for being able to focus on the message and not the sniping comments that are coming in from the outside that say, oh, well, you're just, you're not telling the truth because you can't even tell everybody who you are. Well, that's bogus. You can come out, you can tell the truth, and at the same time maintain the peace and privacy of your own personal life. That's my comments.
Thank you. That really helps a lot. It really does. Okay, Dave, we had comments from the chat room.
Yes, we did. And Thomas, can you read them? Because I got 47,000 things going on here.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on your name, Drake. I think it's a cool name to have because it's an ancient word for dragon.
Yes, I was told that.
Yes, and you can find it right online. Put in Drake definition, and you'll find it. It's an ancient word for dragon. So I think it's cool you've got that name. Mm-hmm. Somebody's asking about David's report today about the Federal Reserves. Do you have any knowledge of that?
Yes, I do. I've also got the original documentation that's going to be outed shortly. So there's people wanted proof that as the proof becomes available and is able to be outed, I'll make sure that it gets out, believe me.
Okay. The next question is, does Drake know anyone who has filed a suit at common law successfully pursuant to the 7th Amendment?
A couple of them. It was minor cases, though. That's the problem. The problem also is that anybody who goes off on a tangent other than the basis of the problem is entertaining a distraction. I've tried to express this in simple terms by using the idea of not having a driver's license and that sort of thing. The only problem with that is that you get to go through this each and every time you run up against the problem. And even though you win, it takes 4 years. Now, I think it would be, in my personal opinion, of what I know of the law and what I know of the basis of things, it would be much easier, instead of having that same dandelion come up every year, to snatch it out by the roots. And this is the basis for what we are doing. We are changing the base premise of law, finance, and government back to the lawfulness that was originally intended in such a manner that it cannot be ignored. Now, David Wilcock has an article in his newsletter, also posted on the website, that deals exactly with this. I was allowed privilege to be in communication with certain people who actually are taking the actions. The whole of it is real. This is not a joke. The central banking system is now in big trouble. The big trouble that they're in is that they have been illegally using the monies of what are called collateral or global accounts, and all of the proceeds that they have garnered from that, to include any kind of profits, etc., now are being called on to be repaid. This will bankrupt the central banking private, and I'm going to make this perfectly clear, private corporate banking system. It doesn't have anything to do with the government. That is known as the central banking system. Not only here, but also worldwide. This is one of the objectives of the plan. So it's a matter of fact, and I will be putting documents out shortly.
Do you have any information, or can you comment on the arrest warrant that was issued by Vladimir Putin for the Rothschilds and Soros?
I noticed that they kind of took off in all directions when that was issued first in Russia. Then they got a criminal complaint issued by the World Criminal Court. Now, the problem with that is that the United States is not aligned with the International Court. Consequently, they can run around here free until we get to them. They are on a list, a different list, where charges will be preferred against them here in the United States, and hopefully that will take care of the remaining issue of their freedom and capability to cause problems. Now, something everybody needs to know, they're talking about elections and this and that, and oh boy, There's a problem with that, and that fact is that George Soros owns both the Democratic and Republican Party. If that'll give you any indication as to the corporate status of those two entities and what their intent and purpose is going to be, this will tell you that it doesn't matter which one of the witches that you decide is the lesser of the evils and put them into office, you're going to get the same result. One of the basics that's going to take place after this reset has settled down some are free and fully honest and absolutely transparent elections. There will not be any machines involved. You're going to have to learn to write. If you don't, you'll have someone who will accompany you as your signature. Who do you want to fill this office? You tell them, they write it down. You make your mark, just like they used to do in the Old West when a guy couldn't write. You make your mark, authenticating your vote. These paper ballots will then be counted by people who are so honest that and squeaky that it's difficult to be around them. It's almost painful. That sort of thing also should apply to people being put in office. So it's all changing, and everybody needs to be aware of what's really going on, and that's one small portion of it. The reason that Putin took such drastic action was that Soros had aligned enough financial control that he was going to take down or reduce the value of the Russian market and basically buy the country up. And somebody got wind of it, and consequently he was forced to leave rapidly, discreetly, along with a bunch of his people. And then even in the aftermath, if you look at that, this is not something that's in the paper a lot, but look at it in terms of Pravda, and you'll find that there were also several arrests that took place of the people that were helping him. So the house cleaning is going on everywhere. This is not just one place, but all over.
Okay. A two-part question here. Is it true that birth certificates are bonded and held privately? And how will the new republic be different?
Okay, yes, it's true. They are a surety bond, and the difference will be that you become a living person, and a fictitious straw man, or whatever you want to call it, entity will be done away with, basically. So that's going to be a tremendous difference. You will no longer have a dual entity where you have you are as such an issuance of stock for value that should accrue through your lifetime, which is what the birth certificate does to you.
Through the Social Security Administration. Yep.
Well, you have to remember something about Social Security, and I'm going to wade into that a little bit simply because I did some checking. Social Security and benefits for people who are truly disabled and or retired military are supposed to be continued. Now, this goes into the finance portion of this plan. At present, there are sufficient funds available to pay the national debt some 5 or so times over. Now, that's the $27 trillion everybody talks about, give or take. The true debt is only $1.4 trillion. So now you're understanding, just on those numbers, some of the fraudulence involved in what's going on. Most of the national debts and indebtedness of people are based on fraudulent means on a legal basis of taking double. Now, by that I mean you buy a house for X amount, and then you get to pay 3 times its value over a period of years. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is that you, the individual, are the originator of the credit. You are your own creditor. This is how Iceland was able to do away with mortgages. So exactly. Now people understand it a little better. It's fairly simple, but you got to get the understanding out there.
There's another question, Drake. It says, are Drake's goals related to Benjamin Fulford's goals, or are they separate east-west plans?
Okay, first of all, I'm not going to denigrate Benjamin Fulford. He's done an excellent job of getting some things out. of late, he has accidentally, by not doing his due diligence the way he should have, stumbled across supposed representatives of certain of these global accounts whom he was trying to work deals with. The only problem with it is that these people did not have the authority to access or use any of the value of anything they were talking about. In other words, he was set up and did not see it coming because he didn't do his due diligence. Other things are taking place. I think Ben will get his goodies back on track and still be a major player. No, the people he was dealing with recently were not authorized nor given legal authority to do any of the things they were promising. So now you got an idea as to how far the impersonations and reach of the bad guys can go.
The next question is, do you have any information on how this will affect Europe?
Europe?
Yes.
Well, quite simply, the Fed has positioned itself in such a fashion that it basically owns Europe. If you'll check the news, you'll find that there's been extraordinary amounts of monies, freshly printed stuff, of course, shipped to bolster the European Union. Now, the problem with the European Union is that they are beginning to disagree with the idea that a financial interest can tell you how to run your country. This was what the new agreement was supposed to be. So far, it's not been approved. And the reason being is that people like the idea of being sovereign, they like the idea of being independent, and they like the idea of being free. So you have the European Union saying, well, we're going to have to be austere. That means that we're going to mess up your economy, and I'll give you Greece as an example. And in doing so, you just get to suffer through it for 30 years. Then, for the icing on the cake, they have convinced somebody, and I don't know exactly who might be uneducated enough to fall for this, that you can borrow your way out of debt. I'm sorry, folks, but it don't work that way. My bank gets all upset when I write a check and there ain't money in there. So, quite simply, not only is that not going to work, but they don't have the whole of the system. Now, this includes Europe and America, parts of Canada, South America, and other countries. The problem is that the central banking system, the private corporation, is now limited to the funds on hand. And the only thing they can do is transfer these things sideways. They cannot accrue further funding. And the problem, and the real big one, is that the system itself is not able to function other than as a consumer orientation. In other words, just like a Ponzi scheme, you bring in money to pay off the old. That sort of thing, they don't have the capability of bringing any of the new monies in because of the combination of the Eastern Alliance and actions being taken against them presently. So they're pretty much screwed.
Right.
Okay.
Was there anything else you want? I was going to say, is there anything else you wanted to address? Because it's looking like we've only got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah. How far down the list will the arrest take place? Might it include state governors or state officials? How can we know that all the crooks have been adjudicated?
Well, first of all, yes, it does go to those levels. Secondly, nobody will really know absolutely until these people start coming out of the woodwork, trying to either run, hide, or cover themselves. They'll basically expose themselves by taking actions of that nature.
Now, you've basically answered this question on other shows, and I'm pretty sure you've answered on this show, but I'm going to ask it anyway. As Iceland announced that all mortgages have been forgiven, will that happen here?
That's going to end up being the case globally.
Okay. Because if I'm not mistaken, we're getting off the debt system worldwide. Is that correct?
Yes, you're going from a debt system to an equity system. It's an extraordinary change, and it's going to screw up everything in terms of what people are familiar with to an extent, but they're going to like it.
And if I can just chime in, Paul Hillier, former Canadian defense minister, is talking about this in detail. So if anybody wants really good information about the details about how to move from one system to another, look up Paul Hillier, listen to his stuff on YouTube. He goes into some wonderful detail.
Awesome.
I think it's also very interesting that President Harper of Canada announced publicly a couple of days ago that 18,000 border personnel would be laid off because the government could not afford them anymore.
All right, folks, I hate to call this to an end, but we have another show coming up with Matt Navarro, and it's time for his show. I want to thank Deetra, Bill, and Drake for being on here. And
It was our pleasure.
We'll have you back again, Deetra. I know we will.
Oh, definitely. I look forward to it.
And here we
Y'all
go.
have a-
Here we go out with one of my favorite songs, Tim Hawkins.
Wait a minute.
No, I can't. Go ahead.
Yeah, wait a minute.
This is Thank You White Knights, and I hope you enjoyed this video. For updates and to go to the source of this article, please find the link below the YouTube screen while watching in YouTube. For the latest news and updates, please visit ThankYouWhiteKnights.com.